So One Piece recent installment picks up with more Loki lore. And high key, not low key, this is actually really good as Luffy interacts with him and we see how Shanks is pretty much involved with Elbaf, especially after seeing him here and fighting Eustace Kid, and obviously that destruction that happened there with Dory and Brocky's help during Egghead Island. And now of course we get a big Jaguar D Saw cliffhanger as the chapter ended. So you have to understand, Jaguar D Saw is only important because he's the only Willow D giant who came back to Ohara and was seen by Monkey D. Dragon and Vegapunk. And now I wonder how Nico Robin reunion interaction will go. All I know is Elbaf feels so far away from the One Piece world, if I'm being completely honest. And with the One Piece politics, like Wano had a similar feeling, but Elbaf even has an even greater grand scale. And I'm not just saying that because they're literally giants. And I do want to say this. I wonder how Oda's going to tie all this into the final saga, because Elbaf doesn't even feel like a final saga arc. It actually feels like a let alone arc that leads into a final saga. And with characters like Imu waiting, and then of course we have the new Gorosei and Friggerland Garling, and then we have the Fleet Admiral and Akainu and his bounty recently revealed. And then of course Blackbeard, who of course is about to make some crazy moves, all instill in Luffy's way. I wonder how Elbaf plays a part in Luffy's development. But I do gotta say that this One Piece chapter 1131 was an amazing chapter, and today's video we're gonna do a deep dive on it. Yes, it's old school LegendMac editing. We're going raw with this chapter review. So I want to start with the beginning of the One Piece chapter. The chapter starts off with Luffy excited, saying he's been trying to come to Elbaf for ages, and asking, is it true this is the strongest country and it's always at war, and even mentions Usopp. And of course Dory and Broggy being his uncle, while ignoring Loki, who's trying to get attention. And honestly, it seems like Loki seems not to give a flying fuck about Elbaf's lore. Like, he knows Elbaf's lore, but like when Luffy is gassing it, and Dory and Broggy and whatnot, it seems like Loki does not care. He just wants to get his point across and get freed. And it makes sense because the chapter before, they actually talked about how Loki pretty much had the entire island team up against him. So Luffy definitely seems like he wants to really fuck shit up, and this chapter definitely was a good case. But I'm gonna say this right now, my favorite character is Monkey D. Luffy. To see Monkey D. Luffy so involved in the Elbaf lore, because people have to remember in Little Garden Island, it wasn't just Usopp who was fascinated, it was Luffy also who was fascinated about the brave warrior of the seas. And I truly believe that Elbaf is not just Usopp's arc, it's actually Luffy's arc as well. And we're seeing this with the interactions early on with Loki and Luffy. Finally, Loki has enough, and he pretty much screams at Luffy, which of course gets the animals' attention and just shakes the entire area. Loki's voice definitely sends pretty much power through the island. But you have to understand, Loki's a giant, so it's different than a human yelling. Like a human yelling in a forest, you could hear it, but a giant yelling in a forest is just a different scale. And that's what I think Oda wants us to show in this arc, that Elbaf is just on a different scale than any other arc, because it's just way bigger. Like we even saw when, of course, the rest of the Straw Hats were going into the arc and seeing the fog fade away. Elbaf is extremely huge, guys, and that is not an understatement. Do want to say this too, the fact that Loki mentions again that he's the sun god, and of course you have to understand this, he says don't open your mouth without permission. Loki definitely sees himself in high regards. It kind of reminds me of how Kaido went from thinking he was Joy Boy, of course, the kind of realizing he's not Joy Boy, and then of course Luffy actually being Joy Boy, actually being the Sun God Nika. I wonder how this dynamic's gonna happen with Loki. Now I do want to say this, he does ask Luffy what he thinks about his situation, well, of course, while his bounty is revealed. And let's talk about it, guys. 2.6 billion berries. The reason why this is so interesting to me, his bounty, is because you have to understand this. First of all, his bounty is literally higher than Blackbeard's bounty when Blackbeard was a Yonko. Blackbeard was around 2.2 billion berries when he was a Yonko. That is crazy. Secondly, Luffy's bounty when he's recognized as the 5th Emperor of the Sea was 1.5 billion berries. That's also something to know. And then thirdly, Dory and Broggy just recently came back, and their bounties were updated from 100 million 100 years ago to now 1.8 million each. Of course, you can combine it to 3.6 billion berries, but still, Dory and Broggy have a lower bounty than Loki, and Loki has never left the island from what we know of. And Dory and Broggy were actually pirates, and Dory and Broggy are way older. Like, Loki is a young guy if you think about it. He was born when Big Mom was around like 10 years old, so, or 5 to 6, 7 years old. So Loki should be in his 50s to 60s, and that's young for giant age. So 2.6 billion berry when you're not even leaving Elbaf is amazing, and 2.6 billion berries when you've been locked up. That is insane. I truly believe the fact that it's a special bounty means that Loki's bounty is only because of his strength and Delphin abilities and power. And if that's the case, I think those Vice Admiral Giants that are working for the Marines definitely let them know, yeah, Loki is not someone you need to mess with. And this is why I made a video a while ago saying Loki is, like my last video, I said Loki might be stronger than the Yonko. He's looking like that with a bounty this big. Loki then says this tree is the Adam treasure tree, bringing Oro Jackson and Thousand Sunny and obviously the Void Sentry ties all together. While also he says this is the strongest, pretty much he says he's the strongest being in Elbaf over everyone. So Loki even admits how strong he is. He even knows his own power. And if you want to pretty much a callback to the Adam treasure tree, Frankie of course explained the history of this. It was a one-of-a-kind tree once long ago, and of course there was an endless war that raged on an island. People died and the island was destroyed by a rain of bullets and left in ruins. However, the people kept coming back to rebuild the nation near a giant tree. The only one that remained intact, and that was the Adam treasure tree. Now, this could be Frankie actually speaking, foreshadowing Elbaf, or it could be the Adam treasure tree is actually just a part of Elbaf and could be a part of a different thing thousand years ago. At the end of the day, the Adam treasure tree has lore, so Loki being tied to this tree definitely is significant, and Oda definitely wants us to look at this tree as like, yeah, that's how strong Loki is. Not just he's with sea stone cuffs, he's tied to one of the greatest material in the One Piece world. And I thought it was funny when Loki called Luffy the wrong name. He called him Rhodey because Luffy has a running gag of calling everybody the wrong name. Obviously, Luffy corrected him, say, hey, my name's Luffy. And of course, he said, okay, then he said Luffy. But still, Loki has some similar traits to Luffy. And I like that. But the thing is, he's more of a sinister, more villainous type than Luffy. And then he says, I'll destroy any pirate crew for you if you free me. That's confidence and ability, not just to destroy the captain, destroy the entire crew. He wants the 1v pirate crew. That is insane. He's giving me Kaido vibes. Now I know why Big Mom was so disappointed that Lo didn't marry this guy, because this guy could definitely have made Big Mom that much closer to the One Piece treasure, yo. He is incredibly powerful. Imagine Big Mom with Katakuri and Loki versus Kaido with King and Yamato. Yamato is incredibly powerful with Mythical Zoan and Konkrasaki coding, but Loki looks as a giant with a special Mythical Zoan Delver ability, and he could have Crazy Aki. It's looking crazy, guys, and giants are obviously just naturally stronger than humans. So, yeah, I'll give Big Mom credit. I see what she was thinking when she thought Loki could be on my side. We also learned that the area that Luffy and Loki are is called the lower level, the underworld. It's a prison and execution, and of course you will find giant and human bones in the snow, which is crazy. We also see wild beast Loki's been friends with since he's a kid, giving also similar vibes to Luffy and how he's befriending animals as well. And then, of course, each mountain having a master, and those were the beasts that Loki befriended. And, of course, there's humans clinging to their life, walking corpse that tried to fight Elbaf. They're now underlings to, of course, Loki, which isn't crazy that he has underlings when he's locked up. I also thought it was funny how his underling humans were like, hey, relax. When he was dissing them by accident, they took offense to Loki's words. And pretty much Loki seems to have a whole army in that underworld. Everyone seems to pretty much respect Loki. And that's why I say Kaido's words, power breeds respect, guys. And Loki's in a prime example. The man's locked up to the Atom Tree, and he still has underlings and animals and humans clinging to life. Now, of course, the human walking corpse that are actually Loki's underlings mentioned Shanks. And this is where the chapter gets a little interesting. And they mentioned how Shanks' haki pretty much knocked him out previously, the last time. And then we see Luffy already taming the mountain masters, the animals, and they're like, this is even more impressive than what Shanks did. That's how crazy he looked at what Luffy was doing. And even Loki said, who's this guy? And then, of course, Loki realizes that Luffy is friends with Shanks. So he calls him a coward. And of course, this causes Luffy to get pissed, which causes Luffy to go gear 4th and almost knock him out. But Loki dodges him, even though he's tied to that tree, he still dodges with his head and said it's a joke, relax. And we see Luffy is starting to master gear 4th. I love that page where we see Luffy have the gear 4th eyes, but he's still in his base form with the haki still on his arm. It's the way that Luffy's moving lately when he did that Kong gun in his base form. Now he went to gear 4th and instantly went back to base form. Luffy's mastering gear 4th, and I think it's because he awakened his love for Wano in gear 5th. And Oda shows us that in Elbaf. And if Oda shows Luffy mastering gear 4th in Elbaf, expect some applications, some greater moments of gear 5th if Oda's already doing this in the beginning of Elbaf. So I thought that was very cool by Oda, in my personal opinion. And then of course we see Loki pissed and said he pretty much yells to Luffy that he can't move, but in his mind he's thinking, wow, when I get free from here, I'm gonna kill you. So Loki's confident, even after seeing Luffy go crazy, he's thinking, I'm still gonna fight Luffy and I'm still gonna try to kill him, which is gonna be a cool fight to see Luffy, the Yonko, gear 5th, Joy Boy, Sanganika versus Loki, who thinks he's a Sanganika with a special mythical zone Delphi ability and a giant. Yeah, the strongest giant. That's gonna be a crazy fight. If Luffy defeats the strongest giant, that's another thing to Luffy's reputation. And of course, Luffy then presses Loki on why Shanks came to Elbaf and how he knows Shanks and what's the business he has with Shanks. And Loki says it's gonna cost you for that information. And Luffy's asking a question that even I'm asking. Luffy usually doesn't ask questions, but I'm asking, what is Shanks' involvement with Elbaf? There has to be more to it. And honestly, I'll tell you guys right now, there is definitely more to it, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. I also have to mention this. Loki saying he's been locked up for 6 years, guys. He's been locked up for 6 damn years. Think about that. What does that mean? If Loki's been locked up for 6 years, I think that Loki definitely got locked up because of Shanks. Because Shanks became a Yonko 6 years ago. So Shanks became his pinnacle of his power 6 years ago. Yeah, they say the entire Giants gathered up to lock Loki up. But think about this. Maybe Shanks ran into Loki and defeated him 6 years ago. And then that definitely could give the attention of the world government to, yeah, this guy's a Yonko. If he's able to defeat Loki with that ease, yeah, his Mihawk duels and everything. But Shanks defeating Loki, I think that definitely happened 6 years ago, and it's going to be added to Shanks' lore, and Loki will explain that. Of course, it's going to cost, but that's my guess in theory. You guys can come back to LegendMac to see if I'm right or wrong, but yeah, this chapter definitely got us theorizing a lot of things. Now, of course, some small information in this chapter. We see Nami and Usopp say they feel shaking. It's either from Loki and Luffy's interaction, or of course, it's obviously maybe that Rhodey running from on the bridge. And it's not just Rhodey running the bridge. You also see Goldberg and Jerd of the New Giant Pirates. So this is an inter-conflict with the New Giant Pirates, which is internal conflict, which is insane. Of course, he got burnt by Zeus, so he has his face revealed. And then, of course, we see the Giants chasing, like I said, Jerd and Goldberg. And they're carrying the Thousand Sunny too as well. And then, of course, Zoro says, I almost cut them. And then, obviously, Zoro doesn't know they're friends and foes. So, we're just seeing a lot of chaos. I'm thinking, guys, these 3 giants, even the giants that attacked your Rhodey, are part of your crew. They're part of your fleet. This is why One Piece World is getting a fleet. The fleet aspect has always made the One Piece World to me more happy. Seeing Whitebeard's fleet initially in Marineford and now Luffy's fleet and how we're developing it. I love what Oda's doing, guys. It's amazing. Then we see, of course, the captain of the fleet, or the captain that's related to the fleet in Hajiruden, of course, of the New Giant Pirates. And of course, Hajiruden has big part in the One Piece story, of course, being in Big Mom's flashback. And of course, Dressrosa. And even Oda gives a little flashback for us in this chapter. And a Grand Fleet member being a part of Elbaf is always going to be a good sign. Of course, they beat this huge ass moose, aka dinosaur, with, of course, his shipwright Stanson. And they're contemplating how we're going to lift it. Of course, Hajiruden's like, yeah, we can lift it. And they actually dug it out and lifted it themselves. And that's shows the love that Hajiruden has for these Straw Hats. Because he almost got destroyed in Dressrosa without the Straw Hats' help. So definitely got to say, this is why you got to help people in your life, guys. Because you don't know when they can return the favor. Just do it out of the kindness of your heart. And you never know when they might come out of nowhere to help you when times are rough. I'm telling you guys. And then I think one of the more interesting aspects of the chapter, not like the small details of what we just saw with Hajiruden, of course, and of course the New Giant Pirates, Rhodey and Straw Hats and everything. No. This moment where we see Brook cutting Nami's hair, and Nami goes back to pre-time skip. Wow. She's preparing to see Saul. You gotta love it. Throwback vibes. And then, of course, the chapter ends with a crazy cliffhanger of Saul being knocked out. and the giant lore with him is going to be crazy as well. It's going to be fun. So Jaguar D Saw is one of the most interesting giants because he was against the world government and he was with the world government, and he's a Willy D member. There's so many aspects to him, and then of course the Void Sentry, how much he knows of that, and Nico Robin's ties there. Seeing Deda Shishishi one more time in Elbaf, man, that's gonna bring back the feels. So yeah, this chapter to me was a great, amazing chapter. I loved it. I haven't done one of these chapter videos in a long time, but if you guys enjoyed it, definitely support the video by of course liking it. And if you guys want more chapter videos, I'll see in the comments. If you guys say more chapter videos, those 3 words, more chapter videos, anybody who says that proves they watched the entire video and proves they want more of this content. But yeah, I got another video coming out soon, guys, too, so stay tuned.